As I told you when teaching about the structure of Pauline letters, let us talk now about the opening. The opening has got almost 4 elements which will be identified by you as well as me. The first thing is that there is the sender of a letter, and the second, addressees, and the greeting as well as the prayer. Now let us talk about the send of a letter. Well, when you pick about the send of a letter, you're going to see that Paul has got his self-identification in identifying himself as a letter, as the sender of a letter. First of all, he identifies himself as an apostle or sometimes the servant of Jesus Christ. But also, he goes as far as identifying the co-senders of the letters. Paul, Timus, Silas, Sosthenes, all these people are mentioned. And also, now mentioning the co-senders doesn't mean that they were involved in writing the letters. No, it has got two purposes. The first of all is that these people, the co-senders, were involved in the planting of the church. That means they were working together with Paul in planting, evangelizing the Gentiles, and thereby planting the church. And also, they being included means that the work of the preaching of the gospel is not a private work, which means it has to be done by only one person. No, it has to be done by the community as well. And also, by including these co-senders, it means that these people to recognize the authority of Paul in writing to the specific community or specific people about his letters. But now you have to see something. Sometimes there are two reasons. There are reasons for Paul's identification as an apostle. When you find that Paul has identified himself as an apostle, in your mind there should be two things which you have to understand. First of all, Paul identifies himself as an apostle where his apostleship is being disputed. And secondly, Paul identifies himself as an apostle as a way of introduction to the community where he wants to go or for the visitation. For instance, when he wants to go to Rome, writing the letter to the Romans needs him to be introduced to them as an apostle so that he may be warmly welcomed or accepted. But of course, there are some areas some letters which miss the Paul's identification as an apostle servant. Why? What are the reasons for this? First of all, the reason is that, one, there were no need of identifying himself as an apostle because there were no dispute about his apostleship. And secondly, if it is a question of writing to the friend, Paul does not write or does not identify himself as an apostle, but has just writes direct without doing so. For instance, when he writes a letter to Onesimus, to Philemon, as well as when he writes a letter to Titus, he doesn't identify himself as an apostle. But of course, when you read further, you are going to see that Paul does not identify himself only as an apostle, but also as a slave, which means this has got a purpose too. Identifying himself as a slave means Paul wants to teach the community concerned. He wants to teach them the lesson of humility, because that community is now being attacked and weakened by disunity. So once people leave or abandon the self-exaltation, turn back to humility, the unity comes again. The unity is restored. Thank you for watching. I'll be back. Talk about the addressee.